We are live with Robert Stark and Jason Wright.
This is a joint resolution committee with Robert Stark and Jason Wright of June 22nd, 2021 at 7:02 p.m. And last time we finalized some of the resolutions on other independence movements. So for this meeting, we can sort of go over that again and discuss proposed resolutions.
So far, we have.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
No, please.
Oh, well, I think I was about to say something along the same path you were about. Alrighty, so let's go over real quickly which ones we've done and which ones we have not yet done out of that list that we came up with.
And I guess before we get to the resolutions, Marcus, did you get the resolution proposal that I emailed you about civil liberties?
Let me grab that right now. 1 second.
Yes, if that's finished, we did agree that that would be the first order of business for today.
Good memory. Let me pull that up real quick. I can do that. I did see that, Robert. Thank you for sending that. Robert Stark, Biden, here we go. And 1 second.
And with the resolutions for in support for independence movements, where do you have those listed? So it's not on YouTube yet. It's just on the Calexico Congress forum.
Well, yes. So we have created and finalized the resolution for the Cape Party and for the Catalonia province of Spain. We have a video out already done for the Catalonia province. There will be a video for the Cape Party this week. Texas, I believe, is going to complete review tonight, which means I think 2 people submitted comments, Brett Pike and Aaron Gleason of the Calexico Congress. And so we can finalize that Texas speech or get a video out. So Cape, basically, long story short, Catalonia done, Cape Party this week, Texas probably this week too, if not next week. And then we can move on to another party. We still will have written resolutions for each independence movement, but we've been doing a lot on the recall debate, so a little bit behind on that, but it is coming and they'll be very nice. It'll be slightly modified from the version that's going up for the video, but it'll be basically the same concept based on the same 5-part premise. That will be coming in the next week. So basically an assembly line. Some of them are coming out earlier than others. Some will have a video, some will have the resolution, but eventually everybody will have a resolution and a video. On top of that, what we also want to do is have special streams like this, where basically we would have a bunch of people come to the stream just to read off the resolution developed by this committee. So the resolution that's made by this committee, you'll get a presidential video, you'll get an official decree that looks like it's issued by the UN. Both of those will eventually be put up on the Calexico Congress and to the Yes California website. On top of that, the videos will already be out for release. And then on top of that, we'll have a video of multiple members issuing the same resolutions, really pounding it home that it's a bunch of Californians believing this. We are a movement showing solidarity and partnership with them. But it's going to come in bits for all of them.
Yeah, and a quick side note, an example for anyone watching or that may be watching at some point in the future. A perfect example of that kind of video that Marcus is talking about, when Marcus and Yes Cal made the statement of goodwill to the people of Iran, they, in turn, there was a nonprofit organization over there. They saw the message, heard the message loud and clear, and reciprocated with a video in direct response. The video only had anything to do with being a direct response from the people of Iran to Yes, California. And they did it in this style. And so it actually really hits home that, hey, this is the people of this place all saying this thing, feeling this thing. Got no audio.
Good old days with the beard. Yeah, that was that's what the goal. And Jason, you've come really, really, really far with the speech to Catalonia. Sorry, guys, we're going under a heat wave here in Fresno, so I'm just trying to adjust. Anyways, we are up. I'm not sure why it's not letting me. There we go. This is the resolution proposed by Robert Stark on the Biden civil liberties issues. Robert, do you want me to read it real quick?
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Assuming where it breaks, we'll figure that out. In the aftermath of greater political turmoil and the proposed January 6th commission on the Capitol Hill riots, the Biden-Harris administration has proposed one of the most draconian crackdowns on civil liberties in the name of fighting domestic extremism. The Biden administration has crafted a national strategy to combat domestic extremism using the same tactics long used against foreign threats, such as a guide to expand the intelligence state, using the organs of the post 9/11 terror state directed against fellow American citizens. The strategy put forth includes increased spending, the greater coordination of law enforcement agencies, including greater information sharing surveillance powers, and the greater collaboration with tech companies. Further proposals include greater screening of government employees over their political views. The political opposition will view this as a power grab, but this proposal brings about the question of what defines an extremist, thus giving greater power to a more omniscient police state. Crafted proposal having dire implications for the civil liberties of American citizens. This demonstrates that the soft power of the American establishment is unable to hold the nation together. Nice point. The abuse of civil liberties is often a sign that a nation is broken due to polarization, and that hard power must be used to maintain order and cohesion, and this crackdown on civil liberties will only further fuel polarization. California values stands for civil liberties, civil rights, and freedom of speech, and those measures on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration are a blatant violation of the civil rights of Californians and only exacerbate polarization. Some good, strong language. I'm just trying to break it up by sections.
Yeah, I'm liking that language. I would say it is worth that wait that we waited for. That's really well put together, Robert.
Thanks.
Yes.
So with these resolutions, do we have a template as we do with the independence ones?
No, I think with these, what we have to do is bring it to Congress. So what we can do is we'll put it up for a vote on Sunday, and then I will send a text out to everybody asking them a simple version of this and how they stand. If we get a majority, which we usually do, then it would go forward. That's the protocol so far. So I could shrink it down to, what's this bill called?
Let me look it up.
Do you agree with the
civil liberties, or are you saying the one that Biden enacted specifically?
The one that the popular name for the one that Biden is enacting?
I want to say it's like internet security or something. It's something to do with, like, it sounds like we're trying to protect everyone online. I remember that from the name. And then the whole thing is like, unless we don't like you, and then we just say a couple of hotkey words like, you're a terrorist, and all of a sudden we can do whatever.
Maybe something like this. Obviously, we can workshop this, but this would be the resolution. Text. Or like, do you approve of Biden plan to there's one of these that I've really heard people zeroing in on. Something like it's something along the lines of, how do you determine what's a domestic extremism, or something like really arbitrary? Obviously, these are needing to be workshopped. So it's okay. In the aftermath of greater political turmoil and the proposed January 6th Commission on Capitol Hill riots, the Harris administration has proposed one of the most draconian crackdowns on civil liberties in the name of fighting domestic extremism. That's pretty good. The Biden administration has crafted a national strategy to combat domestic extremism using the same tactics long used against foreign threats. Domestic extremism. I think we should emphasize this. Sorry, a little bit slow today.
So it turns out, I just shared something in the chat from in a political analysis type group. They're saying this is the first time that the United America ever since 1776, the first time America has ever had a plan to specifically deal with domestic terror.
Good. First time ever to have a plan to deal with. What does that mean? Because I'm not trying to bog it down, but Timothy McVeigh, right?
Well, yeah, there was.
yeah.
This does remind me of what. So if the George Bush era, there was an element of that, but that was more focused on foreign nations, and then there was like a crackdown in the Clinton era, which was similar to what's happening now, but maybe not as extreme. like in light of like the Timothy McVeigh attack on Oklahoma City and some of the crackdowns like on the right-wing militia movements that were happening in the 90s. And then you went on, there was obviously the Patriot Act under George Bush. So there are historic parallels. And obviously, there's been civil liberties crackdowns throughout American history. But but the point is, I think there are definitely things about this that are unique about what it says, unique from a legal standpoint, and also unique about what it says about polarization.
Yeah, and you know, when Clinton was in office, a situation would happen and would be addressed, you know, be dealt with.
Yeah, it was more.
What we're seeing now is more of there is some organization going on in varying parts towards these, you know, violent insurrectionist, seditionist type ends. And they're finally like actually, rather than we'll cross that bridge when we get there, they're actually laying out a roadmap finally and saying, okay, so when you get to this bridge, make sure pay this toll or, you know, turn right over here and take the frontage road instead, you know. But they're coming up with a plan for it rather than just, well, when a situation presents itself, we'll go and tackle it.
So yeah, you made the point, like during the Clinton era, it was very specific on like specific like militia organizations. But with what's going on now, it's very much kind of like broader extremism. Like I think it's mostly targeted against the right wing. But I saw some memo going around on Twitter about how the military is like screening people against like classifying anti-capitalist views as extremism too. So it's a pretty broad like net. Like it's not as narrow focused as it was under Clinton. Like it's much more like a broader list of extremism, which could include a whole list of categories. Anyhow, I have to get going now.
Hey, Robert, do you have like 1 minute?
Yeah, like maybe 1 or 2 minutes.
1 minute. So I love it. This stuff here that's in light, I'll go over it with Jason, but I think it's pretty good. I understand what you're saying. This part in yellow, and I'll email you, Robert and Jason.
Okay.
This is where we have to have the, basically, since you got to go, what is different specifically about this? Saying, hey, it's bad, it's more worse, you know, it's not good enough. Now, I know that it's worse. I'm with you. But we're going to have to say, it does this for the first time since 1870 or like something like that. Now, you have 7 things here, so we can workshop this. Then we come down to your parts here about it shows the country's fallen apart. This is naked power, a power grab, and abuse of civil liberties. Love all that, and Jason and I can workshop that. So I'll send you an email. This is the key part right here, brother, is the specific list of things that are different about it, and I'll make sure to point that out in an email to you that you'll get right after the meeting.
Yeah, stay safe out there, Robert. I know
Thanks.
it's just a planned power outage and
yeah.
all that, but you know.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I gotta get going.
Okay.
Take care.
All right, brother. I'll email you.
Bye.
All right, later.
Bye.
So one thing that I'm thinking of, back to that map analogy, is that this plan of attack, though it is good in some ways, right? Like, you don't want to wait for someone to blow up a building full of hundreds of people to go, oh gee, maybe we should do something. I mean, that's pretty counterintuitive, right? So it's good that they, want to figure out who's the baddies and then, keep people safe from them. But, so like, it's good that they're providing a map. However, usually when, thinking logistically and trying to plan out your route, you got to have a map, a compass, and a key. And the key tells you the values of the map and, like, what's the actual distance. The compass gives you your heading. Without both of those things and the map, it's pretty much just a kind of an open doorway where anyone could cross through it at any point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So that might be one thing that we could point out, is like, where it is good that they're, providing some sort of, method to take on extremism here at home, it should be noted that they don't really clearly define what is or is not, what are the boundaries of extremism, when does extremism cease, when does freedom of speech or civil liberty become domestic extremism, right? They don't really seem to address any of that, and that's the compass and the key.
Okay. I put it right here.
It's really small on my screen.
Yeah, let me
using my
bump
phone.
it up real quick. I'll bump it up real quick. I was just trying to get it all together. So as you can see, there's an email already ready for the two of you to go out, workshop, action item of, hey, we got the list. Robert, as head of the committee, was informed of that. He will get an email describing that. Here are the two items right there. No, that's the way that we're going to describe it in a text message to the Congress in order to receive and get the vote. Can you read it this size? I can bump it up some more.
Yeah, I can read it that size. That's good.
Amy, is it okay if I read it?
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna mute again.
It's your show now. Sole head.
Yeah. Well, I accept that responsibility, and I place it temporarily into your hands to go ahead and give us this, if you feel like reading it from the top.
Resolution. Draft originally proposed by Robert Stark on the topic of domestic extremism, increase in police state powers. In the aftermath of greater political turmoil and the proposed January 6th commission on the Capitol Hill riots, the Biden-Harris administration has proposed one of the most draconian crackdowns on civil liberties in the name of fighting domestic extremism. The Biden administration has crafted a national strategy to combat domestic extremism using the same tactics long utilized by the USA government against foreign threats. These tactics used against foreign enemies, now directed against American citizens, include first time ever to have a plan to deal with domestic terrorism. It's a guide to expand the government, the organs of the post 9/11 terror state directed against American citizens, increased spending, greater coordination of law enforcement agencies, including greater formation, information sharing, surveillance powers, and greater collaboration with tech companies. I like this one, screening of government employees for their political views. That's new. Like, that's a solid new, whoa, they've never done that before. Like, now we ask. Because it used to be you don't ask about someone's politics. Like, that was the law. Now they're going, no, now we're going to ask your politics. So
yeah, because that's like really personal, and like, you know, in the United States of America, you're supposed to be able to be free to have your choice and your own opinion and feel comfortable and okay with having that choice and that opinion. And so now what I'm reading from this is that every single voter, what is it, 388 million registered voters in America now, including California, something like that. That means every single one of us is going to have to think long and hard about whether or not our vote may be used against us at some point. Now, usually, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually in a democracy, your vote cannot be used against you. Usually in a democracy, the fact that you have voted at all, that you have taken in the system, is all that really matters. And am I wrong on that?
you're straight up on.
And so this tells me very clearly, ding dong, that Democratic, well, not witch, maybe witch, because Glenda was the good witch, right? Good witch. But ding dong, that witch is dead. That is really actually, because, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, so I voted for Senator Bernard Sanders twice. So, like, once against Trump and once against Biden. Now, I mean, we all heard people saying Democratic Socialists, that's all just a bunch of Nazis and they're fascists, blah, 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 with the total wrong read on what Democratic Socialism is, right? Societal responsibility, not something the fascists liked. But they label it as, you know, this, that, the other. I mean, much like us, you know, we fought for years against they're just a bunch of Russian spies. We're Californians. How can we be Russian spies? I was born and raised here. I've never been to Russia. How could I have been a Russian implant that's like personally under the care of Vladimir Putin, right? Like, come on, people. But that's the thing, is it doesn't have to make sense. Someone just has to say it, and someone else has to believe it enough to think maybe it warrants an investigation. What? Because I voted for Senator Sanders, who is a Democratic Socialist, then that means that someone could say, well, socialism is fascism, therefore he's a terrorist because he voted for a terrorist. I mean, they could label Senator Sanders as a terrorist. They could literally label anyone that they don't like, that they don't agree with, as domestic extremist, homeland terrorist. Which I gotta point out, ironically enough, is pretty extreme and falls under domestic extremism. Enacting something like this is a form of domestic extremism.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah.
Right? It's like Anakin, he's like, if you're not with me, then you're against me. And Obi-Wan's like, only a Sith deals in absolutes. Oh, whoa. That right there is an absolute. So, Obi-Wan, you were a Sith this whole time? Yoda? Were you Sith? Because they deal in absolute.
Right.
Only the bad guys can ever say this. Well, you know what? Once in a while, even a broken clock is right. Because the hands are stuck in one position, and sometimes the time actually goes past. So, it's technically correct that 1 second. Doesn't mean I say it's a great clock or that I love it even though it's broken. All it means is I am acknowledging that 2 times during the day for 2 individual seconds, it happens to be correct.
Right. Right.
But when people can't even admit that in politics, right? 1, how are you supposed to get bipartisan anything if you can't even admit that the other side might be right once in a while?
Right? Great point. Yeah.
Yeah. I have not changed. Nothing has reinstilled hope in America for me, right? Everything that we've seen over the last 6 years has just shown me further and further proof America is sliding down. And though it's perceived as the slide is slowing down, now that we have the decent guy in office, really it's just perception. I mean, once you hit terminal velocity, it doesn't feel like you're going any faster.
Right.
Because you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. The Jared Diamond was a sociologist out of somewhere here in California. And he concluded, looking at different collapsed societies, that it happens quick when it happens.
Yeah.
Throughout history. Everything's great. There'll be problems, but they won't go, oh no, it's over. They'll just kind of really squeeze the system to keep it going. And as long as it goes, they'll kind of ignore the problem. And then they won't deal with the fact that the system doesn't work and they have to redefine their system. They can't do that. So they just, put as much pressure on it, run the car without changing the oil until the engine explodes, right? Even though you notice it doesn't perform as well because you haven't changed the oil, it still drives. So you just keep driving.
You mean kind of like Rome? The Roman Empire?
Yes. Exactly.
It was this thing happens, they kind of came back from it, it really hurt, it was really bad, but they kind of came back, and then this other thing happened, and then this other thing, and this other thing, and this other thing. And after just a couple of generations of some very serious things happening at intervals, not just back-to-back landslide mess, right? It was actually fairly spread out. they kept coming back from it and thinking that they were okay. And then over 12 to 16 years or something like that, everything totally collapsed. And now 12 to 16 years, that's years. But in the grand scheme of things, 12 to 16 years, you could have a child, that child's still not an adult by the time things hit the fan to, explode everywhere. In between that time, you will not have raised a child to adulthood. That's fairly quick in the grand scheme of time. And if we look at the last 12 to 14, 12 to 16 years of America, we can kind of see all these big things that happen, not in back-to-back succession, but usually spread out just enough that, there's a dip, a nice little valley created, so let's pick up the national fervor or the national pride, and all of a sudden everyone's proud to be American again. And
I love when you do that voice. Yeah. I think it's fucking hilarious when you do that. I'm like, yeah, that's right.
Language, please. But yeah,
dude, I grew up in the valley, so it's all that, right? And the only reason I'm here is because there are many things about it that I love, and we're holding on to those. But there's a lot of that yeehaw culture that's dying off, and I'm glad because I lived here before. They go, it was better before. There was some things that were better, and there were some things that were worse. Let's be real.
Oh yeah.
So I love that voice when you do it. I'm like, I literally saw that before. You know what I mean? Like I saw that shit.
It's the I call it the Team America voice. If you know the World Police movie they made. Do not bring your kids to that one, folks.
Yeah.
But it was pretty epic, and that's where I get that from. America. Bleep, yeah.
Fudge, yeah. The word is fudge, folks. That's what they say.
Yeah, because everyone loves chocolate.
America.
Fudge and more fudge.
Fudge, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Back to the topic because we kind of digressed, even though it was fun. So they experience these valleys and peaks of national fervor, national support, national pride, and California kind of has, I think, something similar, something comparable, right? We see some hardcore, super duper right wing person gets into office, and most of California is like, hey, I'm proud to be a Californian. I'm a Californian first. Like, call me a Californian. Don't call me an American. Then Biden gets into office, the return to decency, and all of a sudden, I'm proud to be an American again. But I'm not saying everyone uses spittoons, because I know that's really out of date. Just saying that, it's the kind of Wild West feeling of, I don't like you, so I'm out of here, and not to say anything bad about our movement, right? And like anyone listening who thinks that I can't be fair and can't be honest, listen up. We do experience some of that within our own movement, our own national peaks and valleys. People saying, I am proud that I am a Californian. and then feeling like, hey, it's okay to be an American again, so I'm proud to be an American. And that, hey, that's fine. Be proud to be what you are, who you are, no matter what you are, no matter who you are. Unless you're a serial killer, then definitely don't be proud of that. But as long as you're a decent human being in life, or you at least make the honest effort to be proud to be yourself. And if you want to identify as American, this is one thing we've always held, is that if California was to become an independent, hey, everyone, you have to be Californian or get the hell out of our place, right? Because we're not unreasonable. But really, when you look at, like, California, though not unreasonable, does sometimes have its moments. We do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I bring all that up to mainly point out that, like, in America, it's pretty much looking like the trend looks like it's just peak, valley, peak, valley, peak, valley, peak, valley. That's all it is. Like a EKG, a heart rate monitor, right? Beep, beep, beep. Just this steady up and down, up and down, up and down, left and right, red or blue, donkey or elephant. Can I be a bear? In a world of donkeys and elephants, people, be a freaking grizzly. Yeah, a mule can kick like a mule, and an elephant could stampede you or gore you with its tusks, sure. But in this political world, don't be the ass and don't be the elephant in the room. Be a freaking grizzly. There's my daily motivational for everyone.
Nice. That's nice. I like that. I like that a lot. That's pretty damn good,
So,
Jason. Being a grizzly.
yeah. Yeah, don't be the ass, and don't be the elephant sitting in the room waiting to get addressed, right? And that fits. That's very fitting for both of those two. I mean, look at what Pelosi did around Christmas time. I'm sure she enjoyed her Christmas. I'm sure her family enjoyed their Christmas. But what about people who live in California? Because, she doesn't actually live here.
Yeah, I hope you saw, like, I don't let that go. Like, I routinely find new ways to bring that shit up.
Yeah, no, I find it appalling that someone... Now, if you're going to be elected to represent people, I feel like, living in that area with the people you're supposed to represent, it's probably a pretty good idea. Allows you to be in closer contact and really have a good feel on things. There are some times where, like, like one of the things that kept coming up in the Bay Area Council Pacific Summit today was remote learning and remote working. Sometimes remote capability is there. But for, one of your state senators to not even live in that state, kind of absurd. Like, the President of the United States of America could live in any of the 50 states or even any of the, 1,000 American holdings across the world. A lot of people don't realize just how vast the American empire is, how many islands, how many island nations have been conquered and fall under the jurisdiction of the federal government of the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, we like to talk about like Puerto Rico, you know, and just like California and Hawaii, a nation that was annexed, military force used to blockade, starve out, and then fight a people much smaller, much less equipped than themselves, because, you know, like California at that time wasn't a warmongering nation. It was, you know, an agricultural kind of a land of immigration, really. It was like, hey, there's opportunity here, and if you learn how to live here, you could actually survive and make something for yourself. Woohoo! That's what drove people to California. What drove people to Hawaii was, you know, the great weather, and what drove people over towards Puerto Rico, I would say, might be something to do with the fried plantain, empanadas, and stuff, but maybe that's just me. I love plantains, and I love plantain
Who
empanadas.
doesn't?
Right?
What monster doesn't love
But
plantains?
I don't love them so much that I think it's right to go send a military force to go take over a country that makes them, just so that we can have more access to it, right? And you know, there's all this talk of the Puerto Rican, you know, 51st state. They've been on that talk for a long while, ever since it was no longer illegal to carry a Puerto Rican flag on the United States soil. Once it became no longer illegal to identify as Puerto Rican in the United States of America. A lot of people don't know about that. Like, that was, I want to say, 60s or 70s that there were the demonstrations throughout Florida and the Atlantic southern states, Atlantic coastal states. There was one elected official who finally took up the cause and started pushing it. And that's the only reason why it ever finally got addressed, because an actual elected official finally said something. But the Puerto Rican people had been saying it for years, like a whole generation, saying, hey, I can be arrested if I say anything about Puerto Rican freedom or carry the flag of Puerto Rico or wear a shirt that has the Puerto Rican flag. I could be arrested for that as a seditionist. That's a federal offense, folks. Yeah, to be Puerto Rican and, you know, feel yourself as a Puerto Rican for a long time was a federal offense to the United States of America. And they've recently been garnering some momentum on their statehood movement again. And all of a sudden, the Washington, D.C. as a state comes up and starts to get actually looked at. Just comes up, and they're more willing to address Washington, District of Columbia being a state, a city being a state, rather than an actual country that you took over and have been subjecting the people of. So, you know, these are examples that I could go on and on and on about, like, what's wrong with America? Why do I feel that America, really, though it can virtue signal, is not actually going to head in the right direction? Well, it's because of things like this. The Puerto Rican people have been wanting this for a while, so that, and anyone who wonders, the reason Puerto Ricans want to be a state is because being a state means that the federal government has to do certain things for them. No longer can just turn a blind eye to 99.9% of anything going on there. But they're not really going to allow them to be a state. Also, one of the big things that came up before in previous history was that, the big argument against it was that the flag of the United States of America would have to be changed. And we like our nice round number of 50 stars. What kind of a reason is that to allow people to suffer? I don't want to change a piece of cloth. That's not a valid reason. Yeah. And so, hey, if California leaves, Puerto Rico should get our star. Just take it, have it, love it, cherish it. Now, they've been subjugated so hardcore that I think it is probably in their best interest to pursue statehood under the United States and try and get taken care of, rather than just go it alone and then, start fresh from decades of subjugation and subservience, right? It's a much harder hole to dig out of.
True. Yeah. Yeah, to come all the way back from that. Yeah. What's going on with world news?
Benjamin Netanyahu is no longer Prime Minister of Israel. Elections were just held in both Armenia and in Ethiopia. The Armenian election was a snap election triggered by the call for Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan to step down. The results, I have not seen the results yet because I woke up at 8 o'clock and had just enough time to get into that meeting. It was an amazing, I'll put that under world news right there. The Bay Area Council, folks, because there was a lot of world stuff, a lot of American national stuff, and then brought back down to the California level for it, right? Like every single topic, they talked COVID, they talked econ, they talked immigration, agriculture, tech, security, you name it. It was epic. And I gotta say, in Governor Newsom's favor, that was probably the strongest. He was the last speaker, and it was probably the strongest that I have heard him or seen him politician-wise since right about March or April of 2020.
All right.
Which tells me that if he really does want to stand a chance at saving his seat from this recall, which he did throw out that it's a Republican-led effort, which I, casually, not being on camera, flipped off my phone. But because everyone who knows me knows I've been green since 18. I ain't no Republican. I'm not a Democrat. No Demopublican. No Republican. And though I'm not like, woohoo, recall, I am helping to, put together the debates with Mr. Evans here. And, having people making us out to be a bunch of Trump-loving extremists, one, doesn't feel good because it's not accurate. It's kind of offensive. But two, it's really not helping matters. And, where it's not helping matters on our side a little bit, it's really not helping matters on his side a lot of it. Because people know that there's only a certain percentage of Republicans in California. If this much of California, like nearly half of California is in favor of recalling Newsom, and only 15% of California is Republicans, well, that says very clearly this is much more than just Republicans.
Right.
So,
Right.
in
Good
other
point.
news,
Good point. Good point.
yeah, other news, Scotland has been coming closer to IndyRef 2. It does seem like, and now this is just my personal read on the, from observing the trend. My personal read on it, not given any polls or anything, says that there is still quite a considerable amount of support for nationhood, for independence, self-determination within Scotland. And the main question seems to have been, can we do this during the pandemic and survive? And now it's seeming like, Scotland's been, from day one, they've been taking some very serious steps towards, ensuring public health and safety. First Minister Sturgeon herself actually just posted, I believe yesterday or the day before, she got her second dose of the vaccine, right? Hearing a leader like her telling her people the God's honest kind of truth about it of, yeah, do I think that this thing is like perfectly made or, that, no, but do I think it would be unreasonable, it's kind of her feel. Do I think it would be unreasonable to not get it and put other people at risk? Yeah, that would be unreasonable. It's like, I think that's why Scotland isn't having so much of the anti-vax, and vax fear. Because there's a lot of vax fear that's not coming from anti-vaxxers, right? I'm not an anti-vaxxer, and I was actually very apprehensive about getting vaccinated.
Right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the back and forth, and we say this, and then we come back and we say, oh, well, it turns out that, if you just be 100% brutally, blatantly honest with people, they will trust you. And if you're not, they will stop trusting you. And then it doesn't matter if you tell them the truth after that. They're not going to trust you no matter what you say. And I think Gavin Newsom and Nicola Sturgeon have both together proven both points on that, or both ends on that point. Newsom going back and forth, and people lose trust and faith. Do I think he was blatantly misleading people? No, not really. I think decisions were hastily made and then had to be unmade and then remade. And I think First Minister Sturgeon actually put together a panel of certified health professionals and asked for all sorts of input from people with, like, backgrounds in this sort of thing. Tried to really devise a way that she could achieve both goals of, one, combating coronavirus and protecting all of her people, but two, not destroying her nation in the process.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky dance. It's a fine line. It's a tightrope, right? The high wire. One slip and that's a long fall. So I'm not like gonna chew Gavin Newsom out for not being perfect on it. But if anyone's gonna try and pretend that Gavin Newsom has been perfect on it, I'm not gonna mince my words. No, he has not. Then again, I don't know if any world leader has been absolutely perfect. There is a case to be made for New Zealand. They closed down their borders. It's easier for them because they're an island nation, right? They don't share borders with many states, and states full of people who don't want to wear a mask or take a vaccine, no less. So it's different. But they closed down their borders. They said, hey, if there is coronavirus here, it's staying here. It's not going out to other parts of the world. And if it's not here, then it's not going to come here because we're not going to be taking it in from other parts of the world. That move right there and the follow-through that was displayed is most likely what kept them together, what kept those people alive. Because as we know, when you're stuck on an island, New Zealand's a fairly large island, right?
Right.
It's not like you could walk the distance of it in 10 minutes or something. It's not a shoal.
Right.
But,
What up, Cade Hill? Cade, you want to join the show?
Oh, yeah, Cade. Woohoo! Come join us.
I'll email you a link. Sorry, Jason.
No.
Before you get going too far, though, may we have your permission, if you're willing, you don't have to, you're the highest ranking officer here, to hear about the Pacific Summit Conference that you went to? Because I think that'd be great stuff to hear about.
Yes. Let's see, 8:30 to 2:30. It was like a
Today.
6-hour conference. Yeah. So over that 6 hours, many things were discussed. There were folks who are elected officials, such as Governor Newsom, Senator, oh shoot, I'm sorry, it's been a long day for my brain.
No, I didn't. We don't have to, brother. We could do it tomorrow. No problem.
Well, without going into too much of the specifics, I can kind of cover a generalization of it. Has a lot to do with how can California pick back up after all of this? How can we get back to being the California that we've, been before? Anything like that, it's going to be, a gemstone. It's going to be a multifaceted problem. So they talked about coronavirus, right? There was the Department of Medical Services director was there, as well as the two folks from Anthem Blue Shield. They talked about vaccine, both, vaccine hesitancy as well as kind of what the need for vaccination really is. Like, why do we need this? Why are people saying we need to all be vaccinated, right? So they kind of went into some of the details about that. They had the CEO of Clorox on there. That one was really awesome because that lady is like, and Marcus, I gotta say, half of the things she said, I heard you say before. Things about team building and doing the right thing, and some of that good business is doing the right thing by the customer. That's what's going to keep their faith in you and keep them as a customer, right?
Really?
It's kind of no-brainer type business stuff for some of us, but she was saying it a little more along the lines of like collaborative effort. The CEO of Clorox.
Who? Sorry.
The
What was the?
CEO of Clorox Company. I forget her name. It's
sorry,
been a long day. It was a 6-hour meeting. Yeah.
You're doing awesome. We have a giant vent fan going on because there's a heat wave in beautiful Fresno. So forgive me, Jason. You're saying everything perfectly. I got this vent fan on. I got the volume bumped up so the public won't hear it, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So they also he was the Secretary of Defense under Papa Bush, I believe it was. Panetta.
That was Obama. Panetta, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, and yeah, so he's been in government for 50 years. And he was talking about, the next generation of politicians. Him and his wife started a foundation that I guess they supply grants for law students who wish to get involved, like go into governance. He pointed out that they do things like send their student person to go work for a congressional representative for was it like 2 or 3 months or something, kind of like a practical internship.
Right.
They cover all expenses, room and board, like literally everything, right? Oh wow. There's a fight about to break out over across the street here. Sorry if it's getting loud.
I heard something.
Yeah, it may be Marin County, but we've had armed robbery at gunpoint, stolen car, all sorts of assault and battery, domestic violence, all here within 1 block radius of me within the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, stop doing that stuff, dude. Joking. That was a joke, everybody. So, you were just listing off all this stuff, and I was like, yeah. Imagine one person doing all that. You have to be really big. You'd be working very hard at crime if you actually did all that in a week.
Yeah. No, things have been getting crazy. Oh yeah, and now someone's going around saying, yeah, give that guy his knife. Yeah, let's escalate things further. Yeah, that's smart.
Are you safe?
See, this
Are
is-
you a
this
good
is why
distance
I'm-
away?
Oh yeah, no, I'm on private property. They're across the street in the 7-Eleven parking lot.
Okay, let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, no,
Live streaming.
I'm safe unless bullets start flying at random, and then I'm gonna have to duck and cover.
Got it. Yeah, we'll cut the meeting short then. In that case.
Yeah.
Life comes first.
Yeah, but you know, this is one of those examples of like, so there are pros and cons to everything, and finding that middle ground, which is one of the things that Panetta also talked about, was governance through the middle ground, right? You know, the way I like to approach diplomacy is, we've got two options. We can start with impossible asks of one another until we both decide that neither of us is willing to do anything, or I can come to you with a very serious, legitimate proposal of, I would like this from you, and in exchange, I am willing to do this, which I know you would like me to do.
right.
Because, you know, let's face it, like, when, a great example, America and Russia, right? Who knows what America wants and doesn't want?
Right.
Biden knows what Putin wants and doesn't want, right? Like, it's not rocket science. Mainly what they do is just flex. Ooh, I'm big bad America. Oh yeah, well I'm big bad Russia. Oh yeah, well I'm big bad America. Oh, but I'm big bad Russia. And it's just back and forth, what they call pissing contest.
What?
Yeah, right? So we could approach things, my diplomatic mind, right, says we could approach things the usual way, or we can approach things in the matter of, let's actually find some solutions to some of these problems ASAP. And Mr. Panetta actually, like, you know, he didn't say all of that in so many words, but he basically kind of painted that picture of, you know, needing reasonable people who are willing to meet in the middle, not someone who's going to step onto the right, right? It reminded me of my policy, not party statement, right? Do it for the policy, not because of the party. Don't do it because of the policy, and don't not do it because of the party, right?
That's smart.
Oh, the no kicking puppies bill, I can't sign it because it was pushed through by a bunch of Dems, and
Right.
I'm green.
Right.
I'll only vote for something that the Green Party pushed it through. Only. Well, you know what? I guess I'm not going to be doing much voting now, am I?
Right. Exactly. You don't get voted. Yeah. Can't vote for it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So what else did they talk about at the conference?
Talked a lot about housing. One of the things that came up a lot was equity and equality. They had the leaders of the, what is it, the Black-owned businesses commission, the Cal Asian Businesses Community Foundation, and the other one was the Latino Business I mean, it's basically the Latino version. I don't want to say it was something and have it not be that.
Yeah,
or
you're
be something else,
yeah,
but,
you're good.
it's basically the business community foundation leaders who like have the biggest foundations supporting Asian businesses, Black businesses, Latino businesses. They all of them, they all talked about the inequality, the lack of accessibility in some aspects, and the lack of proper education as far as, you know, when you access certain things. So one of the examples that they gave that I was blown away by, I didn't even realize it. So they, the lady from the Cal Asian Community Foundation, she gave the example that if they employ 51% minority, then they are a minority company, because 51%, the majority of it is minority, right? If they take funding, venture capital funding in from all over the place, chances are that's not from minorities, thereby bringing down their percentage from 51, and now they are no longer a minority classified company or entity because they did some fundraising, right? Based solely on, you know, where that fundraising comes from, who's paying in, yada, yada, right? It's a little technical, finite, you know, but it points that there's this kind of a loophole that is very obscure, very abstract, but it does exist. It really is real and seems to actually be to the detriment of some minority businesses sometimes. And so she was, you know, pointing out that like the correct education about certain things like this, not every business owner knows about this. And so they might haphazardly fall into that. And then their minority business is no longer a minority business. And then they lose that, you know, federal grant for being a minority business. So, you know, it kind of creates a domino effect of detrimentalization to the small minority owned business. So that was one of the big learning points for me. I mean, you know, I know a lot of medical science stuff. So when they started talking about the coronavirus, I was like, oh, well, I'm already caught up to speed on this one. I did hear some interesting things. Nothing that really struck me as new, I would say. They talked also about, there was a statistic put out there of how about 300,000 Californians provide roughly 50% of the federal income tax generated in California.
Huh. Wow.
300,000 out of a nation of nearly 40 million people. 300,000 are making half of the income tax, or, you know, paying out half of all paid out income tax, I should say. Yeah, that was a real eye opener to me. I mean, I figured it might be more like, you know, a million, like maybe 1/40th of California is like really freaking wealthy. But no, it turns out that really 300,000. That's a pretty countable number. And the lady who pointed that out followed it with the statement that, you know, because they were talking about how some businesses have left, some have come in. California has actually been growing business-wise, not shrinking, even though there have been a few notable big businesses that have left. They left, but they did not tank our thing, and they haven't, you know, detrimentalized us or left us with potholes. Which is good to know, right? California's still prosperous. Woohoo! Yeah! I love to hear that about my home. But she made it clear that, you know, that countable of a number, if you're driving any one of them away with their tax money, right? If you drive that revenue away, it is going to be felt.
That's true. Right. So the soak the rich. Although they did raise taxes on the rich, and they said the same thing. If you do that, they're all going to leave, and they didn't leave. But Jerry Brown limited how bad he soaked them because he knew there was a limit, and that was the guy who was able to do it. And we see a lot of people just saying, like, just tax them and tax them and tax them and tax them. It's like there's a limit where they leave, right? There's a limit to how far people can be pushed.
Yeah, right. Like I saw one person online recently typing something saying that anyone who is worth $1 billion or more, that the government should take exactly half of what they have and redistribute.
That's literally Maoist communism. So.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was like, dude, that is straight up communism.
So that's like,
and this is someone who's totally right wing and like, you know, pro Trumper, and they're saying take those rich people's money that they work so hard for, that, you know, like, hey, you know, if I build an empire and leave it to my kids, a business empire, right, and they grow it and leave it to their kids, I don't think anyone should, you know, have claim on that other than my family, as long as it's being willed through the family, right? There's not really such a thing as like public assets. I mean, there kind of is, but there's not really. I mean, public assets include federal wildlands and national parks. Not your resources, not your agriculture, not any part of your economic value. The park itself, yeah. The money generated from people coming and visiting that park, no. Government says, that's mine, mine, mine.
That's true. Okay, what was so great about Newsom's speech? What did he say? Why was it awesome?
Well, so, you know, and this is why I really wish Newsom would actually come and partake in the debate. I really think it could be in his favor, honestly. Like, and I know there are plenty of people who might be upset with me putting that out there of like, hey, Newsom, if you really want to keep your job, just come and show up and you might win it, right? And not quite that good for him or bad for the recall effort, but in fairness, right, he's not Donald Trump. He's not, you know, singling out a group of people based on their skin color and saying, these people are all criminals, let's go get them. Is he the greatest? Is he a Bernie Sanders? Is he a JFK? No, he is not. Far from. But again, he's he's pretty far from Trump, too. I've got my own personal, kind of beef about him. And I set it aside. I totally set it aside and just look at what is the man doing, what is the man saying. Recently, when I have seen him giving statements about, the pandemic or, coronavirus relief or, pretty much anything, I could kind of see the strain, right? His hair is definitely noticeably losing color. I think anyone in charge of millions of people, yeah, you're probably going to lose some color from your hair. You're probably going to come out of office having many more wrinkles than you ever had going in. Probably sucks a good 40 years off your life, right? Just from the stress. And I know that. So, I try not to give him too hard of a time. Ultimately, California didn't go bankrupt. California hasn't dissolved, disappeared, vanished from the face of the earth, blown up, sunk into the ocean, flown off into outer space, right? California's still here. California's still prospering. Other than the, 30 to 60,000 people who have died from coronavirus, California is mostly still alive, right? So I got to say that in his favor, right? What I heard from him today, there was a feeling that kind of a fire, right? It felt more like he was in a room with a group of people talking to a group of people trying to explain to them something, rather than a guy standing up on a stage behind a podium with a microphone, speaking into a camera, trying to give a speech about a thing, some pre-crafted words, right? I'm sure he thought about what he was going to say, and I'm fairly certain some of it was written down ahead of time. But the feeling that he had today was not the feeling that I've got from him over the last 15 months or so. It was actually quite the opposite. It felt almost like the Gavin Newsom of, when was that he ran for SF mayor? When he ran for SF mayor, it was like back then. He had some vitality, he had some fire in his words, right? You could tell he had some enthusiasm behind it. He was using hand gestures, right? Much more so than he has been lately. Which, the body language is half of the speech. And when someone's standing behind a podium, usually they hold on to the podium, they grip it for dear life, trying to hold on for this crazy ride and just get through this speech and get away from this god-awful camera and all of these people who are going to try and ask me so many questions. But today's meeting, there was no podium, and he used his hand gestures to, display, you and me, and we go back and forth, and it goes this way, it goes that way, right? Not that we need the hand gestures. It's that it says a lot about what's going on inside of our commander-in-chief. Because, as Californians, our commander-in-chief is actually whoever is the governor. The rest of America gets stuck with Biden. And they were stuck with Trump. Our commander-in-chief, for right now, unless he is recalled, but, until then, is Gavin Newsom.
That's
and
true.
I got to say, he felt like a commander-in-chief today.
Nice.
And, it was, I gotta say, it was kind of refreshing hearing him lightly admit or own up to having said one thing and, gone and done another, right? Didn't 100% come out, make some official public apology and, name it for what it is and, say the names and dates and time and place and all that. But he hit on it enough to let me know, okay, here is a politician who understands that he messed up. That's step one towards the path of healing.
Sure.
So, and again, he did make it's a Republican effort, right? I'm like, I am not a Demo-Publican or a Republican.
Right. That's right. Damn it.
But other than that, his speech actually kind of inspired me. I was like, wow, where has this Governor Newsom been for the last 16 months? Because I can guarantee you, had he been like that this whole time, and also, the French Laundry thing didn't happen, I think that the recall effort probably would not have ever gathered enough signatures.
Oh,
really.
if he didn't go to the French Laundry.
Yeah, well, I mean, you remember the day after that happened, you and I were on the phone, and I was like, dude, I think it's going to happen. He just did this. And you're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, dude. And this is huge because, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that is huge. Whoa. And then what? A month later, not even, we see massive outcry for recall him now. Just further proving that we have an accurate read on things, scenarios, situations, the goings on, the happenings.
Yeah. And that was the crazy thing was I was like, if you really wanted to recall him and you were upset about the duplicity of his actions, his kid got to go to school when other kids didn't. Okay, that's kind of jacked up. He had kept his business open when he told other people in the county to close theirs. And he took a lot of the loan money. So if you're going there's corruption and double standards, that alone for me was like, if you're really that upset about this, that's enough to fuel this. And there was almost barely any upsetness about that. I remember bringing that up to conservatives, and they're like, "Oh, that's a good point." And I go, I guess nobody cares because these people who hate Gavin barely knew about that stuff. I'm like, dude, he told the county to shut down and kept his business open, and then he took money in loans. That's classic corruption. They just weren't really aware. They weren't. I thought they were slipping, but when they saw him at a restaurant, and they didn't get to go out and eat, that was the thing. I was like, okay, this is what does it. Oh, okay.
Well, and I think part of that may have to do with, it's the two different stages of family. So it's your family, so obviously you're going to be protective, but obviously also you're going to want to see them for the holidays, right? So you don't want to put your kids at risk because those are your children. It's your pride and joy, the fruit of your loins, if anyone still says that anymore. I'm not old, I swear. I'm not old, I swear.
Yeah.
Could be a voice actor, right? People don't want to put their children at risk, but they do want to see their family and their loved ones, and especially when people are dying and large numbers. There's this scary disease going around killing people, and mainly older folks. So like, hey, we don't know if we're gonna get a chance for little Jenny to see grandma and grandpa ever again. So yeah, let's definitely take that holiday over back home to Connecticut, go see the folks, and put up with the slightly racist aunt or uncle at the dinner table or whatever, right? Or casually racist aunt or uncle. Shouldn't have said slightly, sorry. My apologies. I did not mean slightly, because there is no such thing as slight racism. I'll be clear on that one. I'll correct myself on that.
Hey, 10 minutes, okay?
Okay. So yeah, people wanted to be able to do that and couldn't. But then they saw the person who just told them they couldn't because it's unsafe go out and do that. It was kind of because they're like, and again, why not up in arms about the kids not going to school? Well, because they're much more protective of their kids, and okay, not sending my kid to school maybe is less detrimental than my child hearing that grandma and grandpa died and they're never going to see them or get another birthday card from them ever again. Even though the last time they ever got to see them was 2 or 3 years ago. So I would say that might be why the French Laundry riled some people up more than others. I know for myself, I, as a professionally trained chef, I happen to know about the French Laundry, and I happen to the moment it came up, I was like, wow. I know the dude's a millionaire, but even rich people go, can I afford to eat at the French Laundry today? $40,000 us taxpayers paid for Governor Newsom to throw his buddy a birthday party. We, the taxpayers, threw our governor's buddy a birthday party at the most expensive, most exclusive restaurant in North America during a time where most of us are struggling to make ends meet. He uses $40,000 of our hard-earned taxpayer money to go and do that. That was what did it for me. Well, that and the fact that his businesses somehow got $28 million. Sorry, 2 wineries that he owns got $28 million between the 2 of them in coronavirus relief funds.
Well, and then the other one was he lied about taking a pay cut. He told everybody, "I'm going to take a pay cut," because we're going to cut the budget.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it. And then he goes, "Oh, whoops, I accidentally didn't, whatever." And it's that just, and again, it wasn't good enough, right? People are like, "Yeah, that's not cool." But so I'm like, you lied about the pay cut. When you cut other people's pay, you benefited your own business. Your kid got to go to school. That smacks of elitism. For me, that's not enough to recall him. But if you're a recall supporter and a rabid, critic of him, it should be, and it wasn't. And so that's the question.
Yeah.
It's why was this French Laundry thing? That's the thing that smacked of elitism, when these other capable, culpable actions were largely treated like, for lack of a better political description. I never understood that well.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. I mean, it's as like you said, right? Newsom's not perfect. He's kind of messed up in a number of different ways over longer period of time than just, during the lockdown. And still, somehow folks are, not really willing to get behind getting him out of office unless, something they view as extreme, right? Now, why is it the French Laundry is viewed as extreme, yet, any of these other things is not? Like, if Donald Trump had said, yeah, elect me, and since I'm a millionaire, I'm going to not get paid as president at all. I'm going to do it for free. And then goes and says, oh, yeah, I mean, I know I said that, but, the paycheck already came in and it's too late to hand it back. So I'm just going to keep it. Had he said that, right? Like, people more than likely, even on his own side, would have had to say, wait a second, you said you would do this, and now you're doing that. Like, even Trump knew he had to at least make a very showable effort of, working towards what he said he was going to do, right? He campaigned all about that border wall, build that wall, build that wall. His people want that wall. Even still, they want that wall. So a lot of his work became, okay, I have to make this wall happen, or at least have enough to show to the teacher when it comes time to hand in my homework, enough to show that I've been working on it. I haven't been just slacking off playing video games all day.
Right. Right.
And so it does kind of beg the question, like you said, like, okay, folks, like, Democrat, Republican, I don't care what side of the fence coin you're on. Why is it that a politician saying they will do something, let alone something that easy?
Right.
He didn't say he was going to solve world hunger or cure AIDS, right? Yeah. And he said something easy that he would do and did not follow through. And when called out about it, kind of minimized it, really. Why was that not a huge, huge deal to every sane, rational person who is a registered voter here? If you vote, you should be startled when any elected official does something like that.
Right.
Because, it's a clear trend. Like, whether it's in the middle of the trend, at the end of the trend, at the beginning of it, doesn't matter. People who behave that way, behave that way.
Yeah. Humans are creatures of, I knew this, but you brought it up. You say it all, creatures of habit.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Myself included. We all are. I'm not pointing out other people. It's what we do.
Yeah. Well, and so off of Newsom back onto the Bay Area Council Pacific Summit 2021.
Yeah.
It was recorded. I don't know if they are going to make it public or, post it or anything like that. But I promise you, if they do, I am going to make sure you know about it, and I'll make sure you get a link so that you can see it. Again, 6 hours long. It was definitely something to chew on. But I really I am so thankful that they waived the $1,000 attendance fee for me. Because there's no way in hell a homeless person like myself would ever be able to afford that, right? There's no way in hell. And I learned quite a bit. I got inspired. I was awed. I was a little bit shocked at a couple of things, but I think it was in a good way ultimately, right? Like a good surprise, right? It was just it. I mean, if they make it a publicly viewable thing, I strongly encourage for every Californian to tune into it, pay attention, take notes. I mean, even some of the host moderators were taking notes. I mean, that's how good it was.
That's excellent. I want to see that then. These forums are supposed to be where you'll hear the first of, the big ideas that are coming. Before they actually have a plan, before they announce, we're going to do this, or here's our new report, or here's how we're tackling X and Y. They broadly discuss it. So sometimes you get a glimpse into stuff that's going to become major policy in the near future.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk between a lot of these CEOs about their big corporations, what they can do within their communities that they're in to help better everyone and everything, right? Like they're realizing, hey, we're an entity that is worth bazillions of dollars, and there are communities that are been surviving as bankrupt somehow, kept floating, but really they're just so, for lack of a better term, thrashed. They have been through the ringer and then some, and never taken care of after being put through the ringer. So there's this sense of social responsibility coming from some of these, I would say, corporate elite. And it's funny because usually when we think elite, we don't think social responsibility, right? When we think elite, we think those who feel zero accountability to society. Usually.
Yeah.
But here, in this case, these people at this summit, overwhelmingly, pretty unanimous. I didn't catch a whiff of anything else from anyone there other than, civic, social responsibility, duty, right? And information, education is power. And that's stuff that we're totally in line with too, as an organization, right? I was like, wow, this is one of the best meetings, conferences that I have ever attended, including our own, my brother.
Well, but my dad taught me that you become the best by playing people better than you.
Yeah.
We get to be.
Yeah, well, and emulation or imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yep. What are we not doing that we can start doing?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. What up, brother? Hey, sorry about earlier. I had to make a call when we were talking about. I love talking about aviation maps. That was my roommate. He's studying to become a pilot, and I have to tell you that, wow, California loves regulation, especially in the air. We love
You know,
it.
that's another thing they talked a lot about was regulations.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that was on the radar.
Yeah, no, when they were talking about business, California businesses, small and large, and like, you know, how California small business has taken a huge hit, though our overall business is growing, and still in the face of having a few large businesses that have left, mainly due to regulation and tax concerns. They also mentioned regulations when they talked about, you know, the housing crisis, right, and homelessness. One lady, I was really, really happy to hear her say, doing away with the regulations, you know, and I think she had said it when they were talking about the drought and California's water system. There was a whole section on water, by the way. The San Francisco Municipal Water head was there. They were talking about, you know, in times of severe drought, you know, these certain regulations get waived, and the environment bears the brunt of it because of it. So basically, we legislate in a way to make ourselves a little bit more comfortable at a very great cost to our environment, our land, our water, our air, which in turn affects our agriculture, which then affects the economy. So really, not waiving regulations to just make ourselves more comfortable is the smart move. It is the better, healthier move. Are you going to be a little less comfortable? Yeah. Is everything less likely to tank and take a nosedive because of it? Yeah. A lot less likely. Waiving regulations for new buildings, right? They discussed, they hit on for a second, you know, sometimes people think it might be more cost effective to just buy up all of these empty homes and put people in them, but the reality is, given certain regulations, those homes have to then be like revamped, inspected, revamped, gone through, double checked, triple checked, right? To make sure that they actually meet all of these regulations, and then you can move people in. And that's a lot of time and money on top of what it initially cost to buy the place anyway, so that you can house people. So it's kind of counterintuitive to do it that way, but the reality of building a bunch of new places is that there's so much regulation, red tape, yellow tape, greenback tape, meaning, you know, you got to pay for this permit and that permit and pay these fees and fines and all out the wazoo, in order to build a place to house people. So either way, it's like, wow, regulation is kind of getting in the way. But just waiving all of that regulation is also not the same smart, reasonable, safe move either. And, you know, it brought me back to, wow, I just keep hearing from these people that it sounds like what we need is sensible, reasonable, sane, middle ground. And Mr. Panetta actually even like said that very clearly, like, you know, we need this younger, you know, the reason he started his foundation him and his wife, was because they saw younger folks are not getting civically interested or involved. Most young folks don't look at themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm going to be a congressman someday, or I'm going to be a senator, or I could be the president of the United States someday, right? 99% of the youth are not doing that. And that's why we've mainly got a bunch of really old people trying to represent a bunch of mainly young people. You know, the millennial generation is now the majority. Generation X and, you know, Generation Z, and you've got what was the other one? The boomers, right? They're all falling by the wayside now. It's the millennial generation is the majority. But they're not the majority in representation. They're not the majority of elected officials. In fact, really, what I see is like folks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's young, and so folks like from day one, oh, she can't do it. She's too young. She doesn't know anything about this because she's too young. It was all, she's too young. And it's like, dude, someone's got to start somewhere. There's a first time for everything. And I believe it was actually the CEO from Clorox had stated, she was being asked about, you know, what kind of advice she could give to young women out there who might be entrepreneurs or prospective. And she said stuff like, you know, believe yourself, bet on yourself, take that risk, but also make sure you have, you know, your safe place, your sounding board or your mirrors, right? Have friends that will be brutally honest with you, that don't just tell you what you want to hear, right? Like, again, Marcus, like everything she said that was like for team building and collaborative stuff and all of that, like, dude, it all hit me like, wow, this is Marcus 2.0. Like, this is, if Marcus was a woman right here, he, I guess, would be the head of Clorox. Which, you know, it can be pointed out that it's not just due to everyone needing bleach to kill pandemic stuff, right? Like, their stock has gone up partly because of that, and partly because they've actively been engaged in civic and social responsibility. And like they've been, as a company, taking measures to help ensure that their products are like getting to where they need to. Not
gotta stop
for their own sake, but I know.
Gotta stop. Sorry, I got another couple hours of emails to send. So, would you like to take us out? Would you like to take us out?
No, it's fine. You can do it.
Okay. Thank you all for being part of the committee meeting, and join us every Tuesday at 7 to discuss international issues and other issues and things that we can make resolutions on, and our new model to reach out to other independence movements and solidarity. It's something you can join us here every Tuesday at 7 to participate in. Sorry, gotta go. Thank you so much, everybody. I have 15 emails I have to get out tonight for the recall debate. So, gotta go. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jason.